Hi, everyone, and welcome to Esxence on Air. This workshop is on artistic perfumery in the Middle East. I am your host, Marin, and for those of you who don't know me, I have been in the fragrance and beauty industry for many, many years in marketing, merchandising, retail, buying, all of that. And now I am with Esxence on the editorial board, creating and writing most of the original content. So to dive into the topic today, joining me from Dubai is Talal Beydoun. Talal, why don't you tell me a little bit about who you are and the experiences that you've had?
Yeah, good afternoon, Karen. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. So my name is Talal Beydoun. I'm today the Business Development Director at Création in Dubai, with many years in the beauty industry, mainly in Shalhoub Group, where I completed almost 11 years with them in various markets. I started in 2007 in Kuwait, where I was managing faces for the local market. Then I moved to the UAE in 2011, managing faces as well, and then got promoted to be the commercial director for faces to cover the whole region, which was back then around 10 countries with more than 100 stores. And within the group afterwards, I had the opportunity to manage L'Occitane, the full brand, for almost two and a half years. And then in 2018, I left the group and I went for a few months to Saudi Arabia, a market that I knew very well from my experience in faces. And I worked with few local retailers and niche fragrances, which gave me a closer look to a market that I always admired and liked. And then I came back to Dubai in 2019, and I joined Création, where I'm the business development director now. Création was established in Dubai more than 40 years ago, catering for brands across the whole region. So we cover from here all the Gulf countries, but plus all the Levant. So Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, and the Maldives, both for local markets and travel retail. My responsibility is all of Interparfum US portfolio, plus all the new and existing brands that we acquire in the niche category. So in brief, that's what I do in the beauty industry. Before that, for another decade, I was in a totally different industry. We would probably have another session on this.
Okay, we'll save that. So you kind of touched on the market dynamic that you have the Gulf states and what you called the Levant, which is more
Yes.
traditional. Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, the Gulf countries today are the key markets within our industry, the subject of today, which is the beauty industry and fragrances in particular. So those are constitute of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman. And the Levant is Egypt, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Iran is included. And we have two other territories that are a bit outside the scope, which is Pakistan and Maldives. This is a very dynamic region today here, and has always been a key player in the fragrance industry. Despite all the challenges that we have lived in 2020 or before, through different crises that we have gone through, but still remains one of the most consuming markets for fragrances, And when I talk about fragrances, the subject of our meeting today is the international perfume. I'm not talking about the local brands or the most Arabic perfumes.
Which is another dynamic altogether. So let's talk.
Yes, it's a totally different dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the retail landscape and who are the key players in terms of department store, specialty, independent.
Yeah. So today I will start with the baby I grew within, which is Faces, which belongs to the Shalhoub group. Faces is one of the first regional beauty chains that was developed from the region to the region. It started in 1997 in Kuwait and then expanded throughout the region. Today, the biggest market for Faces is in Saudi Arabia. So this is one very well established local chain that was developed by a leading group, which is the Shalhoub group. Apart from this, you have Sephora, which is an international chain today. And Sephora today has become a market leader in the beauty industry in terms of turnover. Plus, you have an array of department stores between Harvey Nichols, Bloomingdale's, Galeries Lafayette, and some local concepts that were developed across the region. Adding to it, Debenhams, which is a multi-brand department store that has a considerable weight in the business of beauty in the region. So today you have Bloomingdale's, Harvey Nichols, and Galeries Lafayette in UAE. You have Bloomingdale's and Harvey Nichols in Kuwait. You have one department store today in Saudi, which is Harvey Nichols in Riyadh. And you have another Galeries Lafayette and Harvey Nichols in Qatar. In Bahrain, you have Saks. And in Oman today, there is not yet an international department stores. There are local department stores managed by distributors slash retailers in the market. On top of this, you have local department stores that had developed before the arrival of the international chains in various markets, whether it is in UAE or in Qatar or in Oman. Plus, you have all the local chains and independent stores, which are scattered across the various markets. And some are getting organized to become a bit more upbeat and into what is required in the market today.
And then, of course, there's e-commerce.
Yes, e-commerce has become a major player today. You have the pure players, things like Amazon or Noon.com. Noon.com is a local entity that was developed also in the UAE. You have as well Namshi, which is another pure player. And you have all the e-commerce websites for the existing retailers. So Altair, for example, they have their own website, which is Unas, and they have bloomingdale.ae. Faces, they have faces.com. Sephora, they have sephora.ae or .sa. Plus all the independent brands like L'Occitane or Kiehl's or Penhaligon's. So all those brands have jumped into the e-commerce, not from today. This has been going, the process has been going for the past 8 to 10 years. Some have accelerated their penetration before the pandemic, and most of the retailers have accelerated their penetration during the pandemic. So it was a motivator, if you want, to overcome the slowdown or the total shutdown of the markets, to be able to service the clients and consumers' need across various categories. And we have seen in 2020, and we are still seeing a great penetration for e-commerce within the omnichannel environment, if you want, and this will continue. So estimated, really, because as you know, in the region, not a lot of people share accurate data, but it is estimated that before the pandemic, e-commerce represented probably around 10 to 12%. Today, we must be closer to 20 or 25% of the businesses are generated online.
It's certainly increased, given the circumstances. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let's now talk about clearly it's a complicated market. There's a lot of retailers, many different countries. What are successful ways to enter the market? You know, how do you get into the market and be successful?
Today, as you said, and as we are noticing, a lot of new brands, specifically in the niche category, or the artistic perfumery, as we can call it, a lot of brands are coming up. So the landscape is very, very competitive. And a lot of people are putting money really behind developing those brands. But today, there are certain criteria that those brands, in my opinion, today, this is not analysis, broad analysis. This is my observation over 10, 15 years in the industry, because we have seen a lot of brands enter and exit, had a lot of failures, and it was very difficult to re-enter the market. So today, it's not sufficient really to just have a beautiful bottle and nice juices and a nice packaging and to be able to launch over the market. Of course, those are key success elements, but you have to have a genuine story. You have to have a 360 approach to the market. You have to have your digital assets. You have to have your social media presence, and to have identified which category of the consumers are you targeting. So there is a commonality in terms of how you communicate, and not to leave it to the distributor or to the wish of the country to exploit this. Of course, local experience and a dual communication between the distributors and the brand is essential in making it successful. However, the brand should have clear guidelines on how it wished to be communicated about, how it wished to be represented in terms of digital assets, which means how it will be represented on Instagram or on any website, and to follow through on this. And the other thing that the brands should do is really a due diligence on where and with whom and when to enter the market. Like, I know that all those brands have worked very hard to reach where they are today and to be able to put the production line and to have the products ready. All this took probably 2 to 3 years preparation. So it is very important to be patient at this point. I know everybody is eager to see an invoice and to hope that after a few months, the money will start to flow in so they can have their return on the investment that they have put. But it is very important in this last mile to have the proper due diligence on where you are entering, with whom you are signing, and how is the commitment happening between the two parties? Often we see some brands that have gone in a hasty way and signed, and then the deployment was not as successful, and they had to exit the market and then try to come back with all the negative connotation their presence left on the retailers. Because at the end of the day, the retailer today is the medium to which we are able to reach the end consumer. Because of their physical brick and mortar stores or their online platforms. So if they are reluctant, it becomes very difficult to re-enter the market unless there is a clear change in the approach. So we have seen a lot of brands. I'm not here really to talk about any specific brand that failed or succeeded. I know the brands, they know exactly what has gone well or what has not gone so well for them. It is just an advice, if you want, for them to be very patient when they are exhibiting or when they are visiting distributors in the various markets, to make sure that they are signing with the right partner and that they have checked around with other colleagues from the industry back home or with peers who have more experience. Because I think this dialogue should happen at the back end, really, between the different brands, despite the competition and everything, to have the due diligence. Everybody can do a good job, you know, like you have a lot of distributors that have a lot of resources to serve the brand. You just need to make sure that your brand matches this particular distributor and what they are able to do for you in the region, and that there is a follow-up on it. What we also often see is that the brand, they sign or they send their first consignment, and then the follow-up doesn't happen afterwards, you know, like relying that the distributor is doing a good job and stuff. In my opinion, the follow-up should be periodic and very strict, and for those who have the resources to be able to come and visit the markets, at least some of the key markets, which is Saudi Arabia today, which is UAE, which is Kuwait, and Qatar. So those are markets where the brands, if they have the resources to fly, or at least one of their representatives to come and see with their own eyes and to meet the people on the ground and to see how this environment is. And anyways, this is something that they should do really even before signing, to come and see and discover and listen. And they cannot do it remotely. Yeah, and they
No,
cannot do it
definitely.
remotely. Yeah.
No, they need to see what's happening and what the talk to the salespeople when they visit stores. Know who else is being distributed by this particular distributor.
Distributor, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Having the assets and having the product isn't enough. I mean, they need to really be selective in who they partner with.
This is very important, really, and they should have their own expectations, you know, out of this market, uh, and they should set a certain target, or at least an objective that we would like to achieve, which should remain realistic. You know, like we can all dream and have big expectations,
Sure.
but they should be able to challenge whatever they receive in the business plans or the business proposals, and say it's either too high or too low. Our expectations are set at this because we know that we can do X, Y, and Z. We see our positioning very clearly in this sphere, and today those brands are available or not available. So they should have all this. Very few brands do it, to be very honest with you. I think they should invest a bit more time in this, so that they have clarity on what they can achieve and how to achieve it, and to create all the elements that will facilitate the communication about the brands. Like what we said about the digital assets, so those are very important to be present, and they will demark how the brand wants to be communicated about. To have some discovery sets, because we are talking about artistic perfumery, which includes more than one perfume. So the consumer is not going to buy 6, 8, 10, or 12 different perfumes. He might buy a few more. He will start with 1 or 2 at the beginning, but if he has a discovery set that he can take away and discover those different notes or juices back home, and then start to build liking for it, he will come back to the store to inquire, to discover, and to interact with people helping on the discovery of the brand, to be able to buy it and become a loyal consumer to this brand.
Okay. Great. I think you also said to me that key opinion leaders are quite important in the region.
This is no doubt. I think it's a global effect, like in all different markets. But here, it's very relevant today. You have a lot of local influencers and local bloggers. It's enough for them to talk 1 minute about the brand, and you will have a lot of people inquiring, coming to the store. Just very recently, without naming the brand, we launched a new brand, high-end exclusive niche brand that is not known in the beauty industry. Okay. And the sales, we had a podium activated in Dubai Mall, and the sales were picking up, but very slowly. So, of course, part of the plan was to have an influencer come and talk. This influencer came, 2 minutes on Instagram and Snapchat. We started receiving calls from different parts of the country, people ordering the gift set, which include the 6 references. So it's a box for more than $2,000 over the phone, even without smelling the juice.
Amazing.
Just to let you know to what extent those influencers have an impact, and a positive impact, really, because people trust them, they trust their taste, and they talk eloquently about the brands, and they show the people that they are testing the brands, smelling the juices, and they talk what they personally like about it. Either about the bottle or about the juice, about the packaging, about the service, about the overall experience. Because as you know, also today, the brick and mortar today, with the acceleration of the e-commerce, has become an experiential area. The store is not only to sell. The store today is a place where you go for the experience. We always use this example. You go to a grocery, you buy a bottle of soda for $1. But when you go to a restaurant, this very same bottle, you are ready to pay maybe $10 for it. But why? Because you are in the experience. So the experience is totally relevant. And we have seen this transformation today across different concepts and in the beauty industry as well, where both the salespeople have become much more knowledgeable how to talk and how to service the brand, and the consumer, who have always been very knowledgeable about the brands And due to the pandemic and all the time spent at home, they had even more time to discover and to learn. So people are aware what is on the market, what is available, about the different prices, but they still go to the store for the experience, and they engage and they take pictures, post it on Instagram. They are excited about it. So all this is really part of the experience, and the more the brand will articulate what the consumer can discover uh, in the store, they will be excited about it. So this is another dimension that the brand should work on, not only to put all the effort in the bottle and the juice and the packaging. Obviously, they are very important, but all the other elements are as equally important for the consumer.
Great. Okay. Well, it looks like we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So in the remaining time, can you tell me a few of the challenges that you see on the market?
One of the major challenges really is the number of brands that are coming in. So I don't know if this is a challenge or an opportunity, but it's a double-edged sword, if you want, because if you shine, you will come out of the tag and be on top of everybody, and also, as we said, the ability to select the proper distributor or channel on how you want your brand to be distributed, and to be able to follow through and make sure that this is being executed.
And that
Plus
should,
all the regulatory changes or evolution that are happening in the market, which requires a lot more organization from the brands in terms of registration, of documentation, there are a lot of requirements that are happening now, and we see it more and more in all the markets. So those are things that all the brands needs to be adapted to be able to respond relatively quickly.
which, and I imagine then that picking the right distributor helps with that process, they can advise you through the registration and the rule process somewhat.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course, because the more the distributor is organized, the more this process becomes easily done. Because today a lot of those processes are automated online. So depending on the grading of the company, you will have more ease of access to those platforms.
Okay. And also one thing, the distributor, the right one, will help you avoid falling into the gray market. No?
The gray market is there. This is also a question that I will send back to the principals. What are you doing about it? We know everybody has gone through a difficult time in 2020, and primarily also the principals, which needed to convert some of their stock into cash because they didn't know how the future was evolving. The gray market has always been there. In my opinion, it will never erode. It will probably shrink in terms of weight, but it will never disappear. And anyways, a lot of the brands, especially the more established or the more commercial brands, if you want, but niche, has had a bigger appeal into the gray market. Always they structure their business between regular retail and gray market or wholesale. We can call it in different ways. So this is a practice which is existing really, and it will depend on the brand how strict they are. But this starts at home, and home is where the principal is, on how strict they are and how strict they want to be. I know some brands, I will not name them here, uh, who will destroy all their stock before letting anything go to the wholesale market. This is also a practice that should be implemented by the principal, and communicate how important this is for them, which a lot of brands fail to do.
Well, thank you so much for your sage advice, your wise advice, and your time today. It's been a real pleasure. So hopefully we see you in Milan in spring next year, and
Hopefully,
we
hopefully.
continue the conversation.